Before we proceed with cementing the cockpit in and the fuselage halves together, I removed the masking paper from the inside of the fuselage halves. Note, I did not remove any of the interior paint. In Chapter 4, I will cement many of the components together so I can complete the fuselage, wings, stabilizers, and tails at the end of this chapter in preparation for masking for the second camo color to be applied. I will use CA throughout this chapter to ensure excellent bonds. First, I am cementing the cockpit into the right fuselage. This side has positioning risers to set the cockpit correctly. Set aside a few minutes to cure. Now, cement the fuselage halves together. This Revell kit is very well made, as there is a perfect fit of the halves. Note, I am wearing gloves since the halves are already painted. I will secure the halves with rubber bands. Let stand several hours. The dual jet engine assembly is the next major component to build. This whole assembly sits on top of the aircraft. The first parts to cement together is the rear fan blades into the exhaust cones. Note, they only fit one way, so follow the directions carefully. After curing, I am now ready to cement the two rear fan exhaust assemblies into the bottom of the engine enclosure. Note the special locators on the fans to help position these assemblies. They are designed to fit in one way so that the exhaust angles coming out of the rear are correct. Cement these in place. Now, the front fans are set in place in the bottom engine enclosure. Follow the directions and test fit each fan so they can see where they go. They need to also be positioned correctly so that the top covers fit properly. Now cement these in place and set aside. The two covers for the jet engine assembly is next to cement onto the bottom assembly. Note that I am wearing gloves as the parts have already been painted with the base color of TCP 1227 Federal Standard 36495. Set aside to cure. Cement the decelerons, which most will call speed brakes, onto each wing. Make sure you put the correct part in the right and left wing, as small parts will be added later. There are two small triangular pieces that must be cemented onto the strut enclosures for both main landing gear. They easily fit into the grooves on the enclosures, and it is obvious which side is up, as the underside has a mold mark on it. Look carefully at the drawing on the instructions, as you are now ready to cement these enclosures onto the underside of the wings. You can see that the right enclosure must go onto the right wing and the left enclosure onto the left wing. You can tell by looking at the openings in the enclosures and then the drawing. They must be positioned correctly to have the struts fit into the wing bottom. The tail and stabilizer assemblies are the next components to cement together. Follow the instructions, as it is important to do the right and left side correctly so that they fit properly and accurately into the fuselage later. Test fit the parts to familiarize yourself with the placement. Apply CA, position, and hold them together for a few minutes to secure a good bond. The cured dual engine assembly is now test fitted to the top of the fuselage. It is a great fit without having to do any sanding. Using CA, I am cementing this part to the fuselage top. Follow the directions to establish the correct overlap of the internal connection of the wing extensions in the fuselage. Cement the right wing into the right fuselage side. Hold a few minutes and then repeat the same procedure for the left wing assembly. Final components to add to the A-10 body is the two tail and stabilizer assemblies prepared earlier. Again, follow the instructions to have the extensions of the stabilizers overlap correctly in the inside of the fuselage. When placed properly, you will observe the tails face the correct way when compared to the picture on the box. Cement both sides and hold a few moments to secure a bond. Set aside the entire body to cure, as you are now ready to mask for the second camouflage color. If you have any questions about techniques explored in this video, or general questions about this build, please post your questions in the comments section below.